Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the human cycle with our beloved Kittu Reddy. Namaste, Kittu. We are now on chapter 22, the necessity of the spiritual transformation. You want to give a little...
Just give you a background.
Background, yes.
In the last chapter, we spoke of the spiritual aim and life. That means the whole of life has to be spiritualized. And the basic essential condition for a spiritual society is complete freedom. Spirituality cannot be imposed. You have to yourself be attracted towards spirituality, and you have to follow the discipline by yourself. There cannot be any imposition. Right? That is what Mother tried both in ashram and Auroville. Well, let us not comment about it, but that is the goal and that is the aim. But then, in order to fulfill that aim, this chapter is very important, the necessity of spiritual transformation. Because if we are not spiritually transformed, we will misuse our freedom or things will go wrong, right? So, that is why the necessity of spiritual transformation. And here is now comparing the normal society with what will be a spiritual society.
Our normal conduct of life, whether the individual or the social, is actually governed by the balance between two complementary powers. First, an implicit will central to the life and inherent in the main power of its action. And secondly, whatever modifying will can come in from the idea in mind. For man is a mental being, and operate through our as yet imperfect mental instruments to give this life force a conscious orientation and a conscious method.
Clear, no? So there are two movements in us. One is the life impulses, which is what the majority of human beings follow. But there is an interference of mind, or there can be a domination of mind. That depends on the state of the person's consciousness.
Life normally finds its own center in our vital and physical being, in its cravings and its needs, in its demand for persistence, growth, expansion, enjoyment, in its reachings after all kinds of power and possession and activity and splendor and largeness.
This is the normal human being state, the average human being all over.
The first self-direction of this life force, its first orderings of method, are instinctive and either entirely or very largely subconscious and magnificently automatic. The ease, spontaneity, fine normality, beauty, self-satisfaction, abundant vital energy, and power of the subhuman life of nature up to the animal is due to its entire obedience to this instinctive and automatic urge.
So that is why we find animals, unless they are spoiled by men, their behavior is so natural, spontaneous, etc., right? They have no moral compunctions, there are no rules and regulations. There is a beauty in that, right? And that whole beauty is there in a child till the age of 4 or 5. unless he is spoiled by his parents. Right from the beginning they are hammering things into him. But then once the beginning of the mind starts, which is around the age of 7, and that spontaneous ease and all that starts going away. And then they begin calculating, then they begin to say, what should I say which will not get me into trouble or which will impress him or anything of the kind, right? So this is the stage up to the animal life.
It is a vague sense of this truth and of the very different and in this respect inferior character of human life that makes the thinker, when dissatisfied with our present conditions, speak of a life according to nature as the remedy for all our ills.
So there are many things, there have been a few thinkers in France and Russia who believe that go back to nature. And therefore you will find that there, even today, there are nudist societies. And you will find that they are the persons who are least disturbed by sex. Spontaneous, natural living. When they feel the urge, they do it like the animals do it. But after a certain time, they don't feel the urge at all. They are happy, spontaneous, right? But then it is, in modern society, you can't have two big nudist societies. So there is a beauty in this ease and spontaneity and automatic behavior. Children, up to what age do they realize this? What is your perception?
Up to what
Till
age?
what age are children like this?
Oh, it's changing very quickly.
Especially in modern times.
Yes, exactly.
And very early they are becoming
Right. An attempt to find such a rule in the essential nature of man has inspired many revolutionary conceptions of ethics and society and individual self-development down to the latest of the kind, the strangely inspired vitalistic philosophy of Nietzsche. The common defect of these conceptions is to miss the true character of man and the true law of his being, his dharma.
So you cannot be automatic, spontaneous, natural because that is not your dharma. You have to be governed by mind. If you can be spontaneously a higher mental being, then you are fulfilling your dharma. Until then, it's a mixture of animality but there is a beauty and a spontaneity, especially when there is no calculation whatsoever. Because the mind is always spinning, calculating, right?
Yes.
So, these going back to nature was Rousseau in the French Revolution. He said, let us go back to nature. And Nietzsche afterward, almost at the same time, in Germany. Now we can read the next paragraph.
Nietzsche's idea that to develop the Superman out of our present, very unsatisfactory manhood is our real business, is in itself an absolutely sound teaching.
So Nietzsche spoke of the Superman, right? That we have to go up. We are, as you will see in the next sentence, we have to not only be ourselves, but we have to exceed ourselves.
His formulation of our aim to become ourselves, to exceed ourselves, implying, as it does, that man has not yet found his found all his true self, his true nature, by which he can successfully and spontaneously live, could not be bettered.
That is exactly what the Mother and Sri Aurobindo want us, to be ourselves and to exceed ourselves.
But what do you really feel about Nietzsche? What do you really feel about Nietzsche?
See, now Nietzsche got the right idea, but his idea of Superman was, you will see in the very next sentences.
But then the question of questions is there. What is our self? And what is our real nature?
See, now that is the real problem. To become our true self, to exceed ourselves, the question is, where is the self? Right?
And what is it?
Is it in the physical or vital or mental or psychic?
What is that which is growing in us, but into which we have not yet grown? It is something divine, is the answer. A divinity, Olympian, Apollonian, Dionysiac, which the reasoning and consciously willing animal, man, is laboring more or less obscurely to become.
So that is obscurely or consciously. In spiritual centers it is supposed to be conscious, but obscurely everybody is trying without knowing that he is trying.
Certainly, it is all that. But in what shall we find the seed of that divinity, and what is the poise in which the Superman, once self-found, can abide and be secure from lapse into this lower and imperfect manhood?
So where is that place where we are secure from our lower nature? So as Mother says, first it is a psychic being, then it will take you to higher and higher level on the mental plane also. But if the psychic guidance is there, it is unerring. But it has to be psychic. You must not deceive yourself and justify all your vital impulses in the name of the psychic.
Is it the intellect and will, the double-aspected buddhi of the Indian psychological system?
See, two things. That is why the word is very important. Is it the intellect and will?
Yes.
That means there are two things. One is your intellect has to find out the truth, and your will has to implement the truth. Because very often we know what is right, inwardly, deeply, but we do what is wrong. Sometimes we do spontaneously what is right, but since the intellect is not developed, we are not sure. So that is why this buddhi is a double aspect. If you have knowledge but not will, failure. If you have will but not knowledge, there also you will go wrong. So that is why it is double aspected buddhi. And somebody who doesn't have either of these is in India called a buddhu.
But this is, at present, a thing so perplexed, so divided against itself, so uncertain of everything it gains, up to a certain point indeed magically creative and efficient, but when all has been said and done, in the end so splendidly futile, so at war with and yet so dependent upon and subservient to our lower nature, that even if in it there lies concealed some seed of the entire divinity, it can hardly itself be the seed, and at any rate gives us no such secure and divine poise.
So that is why we are in love and we are in war with our lower nature. So that is why Sri Aurobindo's yoga is very difficult. Because you have to accept life. You have to change everything in life, right? But you are in love with your lower nature and you are also aspiring to get out of the lower nature. So that is why all spiritual progress is a battle. Till you reach a certain stage where no more battle, you are already there.
But this is something Sri Aurobindo is very clear on, that it is a battle.
Huh?
It is a
Yes,
battle.
and not only a battle, a ferocious battle.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
in fact, in the early days, till the children came, till we came, I was very strict about admitting people. Because the battle is so fierce that you might lose your balance. So unless you are inwardly ready, you are not allowed. But then once the children came, and she admitted it because that was the one place of refuge which sadhaks felt, that their children can come and stay here. Because many of the sadhaks were married and come here. So that is why we are all allowed, right? But then she herself asked, have I done the right thing? And she said, yes, because our sadhana is in life. And when the children come, well, they bring a completely different atmosphere, right? And there is no question of demanding from them yoga. They have to decide when they are 18 or 21 whether they want to do yoga or not. Until then, we have to let them grow naturally, spontaneously, and naturally all the wrong things come. I know one or two people, I won't give you the name, but he was my French teacher, before the school started. Because mother used to arrange that all of us get tutorship. Mathematics from somebody, English from somebody, French from somebody, history from Shivita, and so on. So she was very concerned and caring about us, right? Then the school started, and then when the school started, boys and girls were all together, and when 45 Pranamda came, he brought the groups and all that, right? And the girls began to wear. There was a violent revolt. And even when the mother used to come to the playground at the beginning, she used to come in sari. She used to play rings, And even sometimes table tennis with sari. But then once the tennis court was created on Manoranjan Das' birthday, it was finished. To thank him, mother started playing tennis, and then she came to that dress which she wore for playing tennis.
Therefore we say, not the intellect and will, but that supreme thing in us, yet higher than the reason, the spirit, here concealed behind the coatings of our lower nature, is the secret seed of the divinity, and will be, when discovered and delivered, luminous above the mind, the wide ground upon which a divine life of the human being can be with security founded.
So that means we have to go there. Until then, there is no real security. So that is why life in the ashram is not easy from the spiritual point of view. Because you have to take up your whole lower nature and go on lifting it up, lifting it up, lifting it up.
When we speak of the Superman,
What?
when we speak of the Superman,
Oh, yeah, continuing.
we speak evidently of something abnormal or supernormal to our present nature. So much so that the very idea of it becomes easily alarming and repugnant to our normal humanity.
Because man doesn't like anybody who is superior to him. So there is a kind of, it develops an inferiority complex. And this is true even in ordinary life. When somebody is doing much better than you, a certain amount of jealousy does come in.
But don't you think there was a great respect for Nolini, for
What?
Champaklal? Was there not a great respect for
They
them?
are like a different material completely.
No, but people did not become annoyed about that.
With Nolini, Amrita and Champakla.
Yeah.
Yes, because they did not recognize the height of their realization or their service. Champaklal always says that I have not realized anything. I only have served and served and served. But that is human nature. Anybody who is superior to you, you tend to criticize.
The normal human does not desire to be called out from its constant mechanical round to scale what may seem to it impossible heights, and it loves still less the prospect of being exceeded, left behind, and dominated. Although the object of a true supermanhood is not exceeding and domination for its own sake, but precisely the opening of our normal humanity to something now beyond itself that is yet its own destined perfection.
Now there is a difference between Nietzsche and Shravinga. Nietzsche's Superman would have dominated, would have looked down. Shravinga's Superman has exceeded all that, but he is willing to come down, willing to help, and help you to come up. And that was evident in all mother's actions. Because Shravinga withdrew, so the whole thing was on the mother. All the dealings were his mother. She was doing all the time, raising you up, encouraging you.
But mark that this thing which we have called normal humanity is itself something abnormal in nature, something the like and parity of which we look around in vain to discover. It is a rapid freak, a sudden miracle.
Look at all life. Man is a very small percentage. Animals, plants, right? So from that point of view, man is a freak. If you look at the huge, unless you accept the theory of evolution of consciousness, not physical forms only, evolution of consciousness, man is a freak.
Interesting. Abnormality in nature is no objection, no necessary sign of imperfection, but may well be an effort at a much greater perfection. But this perfection is not found until the abnormal can find its own secure normality, the right organization of its life in its own kind and power and on its own level. Man is an abnormal who has not found his own normality. He may imagine he has. He may appear to be normal in his own kind, but that normality is only a sort of provisional order, Therefore, though man is infinitely greater than the plant or the animal, he is not perfect in his own nature like the plant and the animal.
You take a rose, it's absolutely perfect, right? There is nothing more that you can get, all kind of beauty. But man is imperfect. That imperfection is a blessing. Because then there is the need to grow higher and higher and higher. That is an acceptance.
And the rose cannot outdo its own perfection.
What?
The rose cannot outdo its own perfection.
Exactly.
Kittu, can you elaborate on the sentence, the right organization of its life in its own kind and power and on
Where
its...
is that? Where is the sentence? Oh, the right organization of its life in its own kind and power are on its own level. See, the animal is at a certain level, and in a certain sense, the animal is perfect at that level, right? Especially if he is not spoiled by man, right? Now, so for man now, he has to find out a normal which will satisfy his nature, right? And you might think that it is in the mind that you will get it. In the mind you will not get it. So the very next sentence.
This imperfection is not a thing to be at all deplored, but rather a privilege and a promise, for it opens out to us an immense vista of self-development and self-exceeding.
Therefore, unless you are dissatisfied with yourself, there is no question of aspiration. In anything, even in sports, I'm happy I have done 12.5 seconds, it's finished. I've done 12.5, now next my 12.2, then next 11.8. So that dissatisfaction has to be always there.
But this dissatisfaction often takes the form of like an existential crisis, you know.
Dissatisfaction
Takes the form of what?
an existential crisis.
Like, you know, people often turn to the other end of it. Like they get depressed and they get pulled down in that dissatisfaction.
No, I didn't understand what it is.
We get depressed and pulled down in that dissatisfaction.
Now you see, you get depressed because you are not willing to face the battle. But if you have courage, if you have a true and genuine aspiration, there is no question of being depressed. In fact, every difficulty becomes, as Mother said, a springboard. Every blow that you get is a springboard to a higher movement. But if you are not strong or not full of aspiration, right, every blow will depress, as you said.
You give up.
To give up or to be satisfied.
Yes.
See, you must, if the moment you are satisfied with yourself, then it's over. Thus far and no further, never. Always there is a beyond.
Yes. Yes. Man, at his highest, is a half-god who has risen up out of the animal nature and is splendidly abnormal in it. But the thing which he has started out to be, the whole God, is something so much greater than what he is, that it seems to him as abnormal to himself as he is to the animal.
Exactly.
Yeah. This means a great and arduous labor of growth before him, but also a splendid crown of his race and his
That is
victory.
why it's great labor. and a lot of suffering. But if you reach the end, that calm is one of full happiness. That is why in the ashram, as it is, many people tell me, many people are very unhappy. And because they are not able to rise, and they don't have the strength and the aspiration to rise. So that is why, as Narad told me personally and also others, every time you get a blow, physical or psychological, you thank the Divine. Thank the Divine. This is a springboard for me. So, consequence is never complain.
Yes.
And that is the measure. The moment you start complaining about your circumstances, about this, about that, your progress is stopped. There is a problem, I'll handle it. There must be something wrong within me also. And then you make the progress. So this is a very practical thing to do. That is why never complain. It is not easy. Because we tend to complain, but then after that go back home and say, no, I shouldn't complain. I will correct it. The fault is within me.
A kingdom is offered to him, beside which his present triumphs in the realms of mind or over external nature will appear only as a rough hint and a poor beginning.
Because science has done wonderful things, right? And it has created a whole new world. But it is, as I say, only a poor hint and the beginning of a new beginning. And science itself has discovered that now. That we have not got to the root of everything. Yes. We have solved many problems, but there are many more problems. In fact, more problems that are unsolved.
Yes.
So, there are my colleagues who are PhDs in science and microbiology and who have turned to the mother, they say, yes, absolutely. Science itself has reached that point where it says that we have to go beyond. So now as they have gone back and back and back, molecule, atom, this energy, proton, this is ultimately energy and consciousness.
Yes.
And the moment consciousness comes in, as Mother says, change your consciousness, the world will change.
What precisely is the defect from which all his imperfection springs? We have already indicated it. That has indeed been the general aim of the preceding chapters, but it is necessary to state it now more succinctly and precisely. We see that at first sight, man seems to be a double nature. An animal nature of the vital and physical being, which lives according to its instincts, impulses, desires, its automatic orientation and method, and with that a half-divine nature of the self-conscious intellectual, ethical, aesthetic, intelligently emotional, intelligently dynamic being who is capable of finding and understanding the law of his own action and consciously using and bettering it, a reflecting mind that understands nature, a will that uses, elevates, perfects nature, a sense that intelligently enjoys nature.
Intelligently enjoys nature. Not like an animal enjoying nature. So we have two parts in us. One is the lower part and one is the higher part. And it's a constant battle till you arrive at a stage where you are secure. And that, according to the mother, is the psychic being. Not spasmodic psychic contacts, but continual psychic contact. Or at least psychic contact at will. That means you are not in the contact and things are immediately you can pull back and get into psychic contact. So, mother promised somebody that I will give you the psychic contact, and then you will be able to overcome your lower nature. And he said, for more than 23 years I tried and tried and tried. I couldn't. Then mother said, now I will give you the present, a gift, and you can be in your conscious being at least whenever you want to. So, he is on the point of losing his temper, immediately pulls himself back and gets into psychic being. If you can do that much, you are looked after.
The aim of the animal part of us is to increase vital possession and enjoyment. The aim of the semi-divine part in us is also to grow, possess, and enjoy. But first to possess and enjoy intelligently, aesthetically, ethically, by the powers of the mind, much more than by the powers of the life and body. And secondly, to possess and enjoy not so much the vital and physical, except insofar as that is necessary as a foundation and starting point, a preliminary necessity or condition, a standing ground and basis, but things intellectual, ethical, and aesthetic, and to grow not so much in the outward life, except in so far as that is necessary to the security, ease, and dignity of our human existence, but in the true, the good, and the beautiful.
Aesthetic, ethical, and intellectual. Right? That is the aim and that is the purpose of man. So that is essentially the purpose of the ashram and Auroville. And ought to be the purpose of all ashrams, wherever they are.
Yes. This is the manhood of man, his unique distinction and abnormality in the norm of this inconscient material nature.
The whole beauty of Sri Aurobindo's writing is that it was his mother who, through Paul Richard, told him to start writing. Because Paul Richard met him in 1910 and he was very impressed. He said, the new dawn will come from Asia. After meeting him, he told mother had in her contact already. When she came, he was in the guest house, he climbed up the stairs, she climbed up the stairs, and he was standing at the top, exactly what she had seen in her dream and vision. And then he went and sat on a chair, with a table in front, another chair. Mother pushed that chair aside, sat at his feet. Her head was touching the leg of the table. And he said, in 2 or 3 minutes, he passed on such a tremendous silence and peace which I have been trying all these years, I couldn't get it. And he in one stroke did it. And that is the essence of Sri Aurobindo. Not outward action, but inner action that produces outward results. So when he says that I got involved in the Second World War and the Battle of Dunkirk, he brought the fog and the clouds, right? Nobody will believe it, no, but that is how it worked.
Yes.
And the whole of Niruddha's correspondence is that
Yes.
he cured people by sending a force, if they were receptive.
And he put words in Churchill's mouth.
What?
He put words in Churchill's mouth. Churchill's speeches are very Aurobindonian.
Who's?
Winston Churchill,
At that time.
at that time.
But then after the war, he said that India will not get its freedom except under my dead body.
Yeah.
So he became open at that time. Or Sri Aurobindo used it.
Yes.
Whether you are open or not, he uses you. He has a purpose, he picks up his instrument.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Kittu. Wonderful session.
Okay.
Namaste. Namaste, all.